Oh boy, is it a bad couple of years to be a Ubisoft fan. My God. So, if you guys don't know, if you haven't heard, Ubisoft has been in some trouble, some dilemma. These two games right here that we're going to talk about, Assassin's Creed Shadows and the new Star Wars game, are honestly rough. But it doesn't just end there. There was plenty more before it. You know, the downfall, it's been happening. It's been slow. It's been steady. I don't think many of the Assassin's Creed games that have come out over the last couple of years, I think ever since Black Flag, they've been falling off. Some people might disagree. Some people might like the combat of the other games, but I've been really not into them. Um, they've had the same sort of formula for a while now as well, where it's a lot of busy work. It's a lot of boring gameplay, right, coming out of them. Even you look at like Far Cry 4 onwards, right? Not the greatest. Far Cry 4 was fantastic, but like after that was just not hitting the mark as good for Far Cry games in my opinion. Um, but boy howdy, it's I think it's finally time to put this old dog to rest. If you know what I'm saying. It has been a rough one for Ubisoft. They have controversy after controversy coming out lately. Um, their stock prices are record lows. They're literally just there's a lot to cover. Let's start with the simple ones. The two games they've been banking on two games. They've been hyping up two games: Star Wars and specifically Assassin's Creed Shadows. So let's quickly talk about them. So Star Wars has released; it's come out, but it was looking pretty rough on release. Like so before, like when the trailers dropped, it was looking pretty rough. There was the graphical fidelity was looking a bit iffy, looking a little bit PlayStation, 3, PlayStation 2 era, not looking very fancy, not looking very high quality. Not very quadruple A of you, if you would like to put it into Ubisoft devs' hands, right? Not very triple or quadruple A of you. But nevertheless, the game was looking a bit iffy. But a lot of people still had some degree of hope for it. Other than that, it was a lot of people clowning on the game. Not to mention the fact that there was the typical and very heavily pushed DEI initiatives getting struck here with this game in terms of character designs and so on and so forth that we've seen flop in many games recently. Dustborn, um, Concord, all these sort of games where these DEIs are getting initiatives are getting pushed and pushed and pushed and failing. But nevertheless, the game released as a massive buggy mess. It is completely a flop. The pricing of the game was outrageous on release as well. We saw 150 USD as a price tag on one of the versions of this game, with a standard release of I think like 90 USD, which is just absurd for a game in this day and age. Especially to release on such a buggy and horrible mess. I think that's also one of the biggest egregious parts of it. But then when you add on top of that the fact that they have done this same pricing also for Assassin's Creed Shadows, offering 4 different versions of the game with basically no additional content of meaningful value in these other editions. The first edition that you get to have with it is that you get a couple of days of gameplay early for ordering the next edition up from the base level. You get a couple of cosmetics, and then at the very last one, you get some content, a content mission that you would basically already have in the game, but they decided to remove so that way you would have this content as a pre-ordered bundle, basically an extra cost. They took it out of the game solely to charge you more, and it's usually never a good mission with these sort of things. But nevertheless, the Ubisoft pricing bundle has been pushed on both of these games. They're outrageous. with the release of the Star Wars Outlaws and how poor it's come out. It's very clear that Assassin's Creed Shadows is going to have a whole slew of problems as well, I'm sure, on release. But nevertheless, the game was just a complete disaster. And time to talk a little bit about Shadows. Shadows is a similar problem. There is so much controversy around this game. It is ridiculous. This game has been something of a disaster ever since its announcement. There's a couple of reasons why. Number one, obviously, the price point, again, being egregious, being incredibly predatory, and incredibly lacking in value. The fact that you're paying almost the same price of the entire game for a couple of cosmetics in the game is insane, especially for a single-player game where there is essentially no multiplayer. The fact that it is an always-online game as well, and has been confirmed to be an always-online game. But then where it has really come crashing down for this game in particular is, again, to do with the franchise that it's in. Like the Star Wars game, there's plenty of really fantastic Star Wars games, and then there is this, which is a real disaster, especially from a AAA standpoint. I mean, the Star Wars franchise has been really going downhill. Assassin's Creed, a very similar concept. Assassin's Creed has always been a game series where historical accuracies have been a major part of the game. Usually there are fantasy elements, like the crazy alien artifacts, and also the fact that it's someone going, back into memories in their genome, which is not a possibility. All that garbage, right? There's a lot of sci-fi stuff in there. It's definitely a sci-fi franchise, but it had a lot of historical accuracies and prided itself on a lot of historical accuracies in the actual game itself. And in this case, it is a blatantly disrespectful rendition of Japanese history. They have basically thrown out so much in the way of historical accuracy. Is not even funny. If you compare this to Assassin's Creed 3, it is a joke. If you guys don't know, Assassin's Creed 3 was an insanely well done game. Probably one of the best Assassin's Creed games, arguably, outside of maybe Black Flag being, I know, one of the better ones, and then a cult classic and a favorite. But nevertheless, they fully recreated a section of Boston in that game, and they literally sent their art designers there. They sent art designers there to take photos and recreate Boston in a phenomenal manner. And this is something that they pride themselves on. But in this game, they took a massive, massive dump on everything to do with the Japanese culture and everything to do with the historics of it all. First of all, they have two protagonists, one of which is a rather famous or infamous character known as Yasuke. And Yasuke is a very, very contentious point in this game. He is, in real life, a real person that did exist. He was a slave bought by Oda Nobunaga, who served him for a period of time before eventually, essentially getting deported upon Oda Nobunaga's death. But nevertheless, there was a lot of contention around this character because they not only did not make a historically accurate version of this character in the slightest, but they built themselves off of a historical fiction that was claiming to be historically accurate, thanks to a book writer that essentially lied about the entirety of the history of Yasuke, his existence. He was an author that scrubbed the Wikipedia, along with essentially trying to erase as many sources as possible about Yasuke's history, so that way his book about history on Yasuke was accurate and not complete fantasy. But he claimed that Yasuke was in fact a samurai and loved by Oda Nobunaga to the point where he was even given lordship, or was intended to be given lordship over land, and so on and so forth. and was considered to be a brave warrior that fought alongside Oda Nobunaga's side, which is not the case. He did not commit seppuku. He did not fall with Oda Nobunaga. He was not a samurai. He was not any form of warrior. He was simply a slave and an attendant to Oda, who was something that he was fascinated by because of the complexion and size of the man, and that was it. There's proof of this. You can look it up. There are plenty of YouTube videos about it, based on fact, using actual documentation that the Japanese government has, as well as plenty of content from Japanese content creators that can translate it properly and not ill translations either. But nevertheless, that's the first controversy that really hit the game. The second was also the fact that the entirety of Japan that they're depicting here was wrong. There are so many inaccuracies, from the fact that they have cherry blossoms flourishing out of season, along with plants and fields being attended by, plenty of workers on crops that would not exist during the time in which everything else is going on. So there is a lot of historical inaccuracies in terms of setting and time, and it's showing just a real disservice to the way the game is portrayed, both from a visual standpoint of the setting, but also from the characters' representations. It's gotten so bad, actually, that even the Japanese government is looking into this misrepresentation of Japanese culture, and seeking an investigation on it. There's also been a lot of backlash put towards Ubisoft, and Ubisoft has retorted with basically saying that their games were never historically accurate, and then backpedaling on that and actually saying no, they were going for historical accuracy, and then backpedaling again and saying no, actually we were going for not historically accurate after all. So they're flip-flopping. They're trying to cover every base. They're trying to backpedal. They're trying to fix everything in terms of the absolute disgrace that it has been, not only from a pricing standpoint, but from a design standpoint, and from a very clear aspect of disrespect and unfortunate choicing. There was no reason to make Yasuke a samurai. There was no reason to not just have a Japanese man with a compelling story that was created and designed for this game as something that was available to play. There was no reason to not just include a representation. If you wanted to make Yasuke a samurai, cool, but he did not need to be the main character, and a lot of people were upset at the fact that a lot of Japanese players, and this is not something coming from the West, it's coming from the East as well. These Japanese players were very much so excited about a Japanese Assassin's Creed, as it's a very cool time period, it's a very awesome game setting, and a lot of people were looking for that. They were excited to play as a Japanese person, play as someone in Japan in the time period that they love, and of course, to see it butchered is something devastating to them. And you can look at all the different trailers. The global trailer just recently released to a massive dislike ratio, not only on the English side of things, but also on the Japanese side of things. You can look all this up. It is so flagrant. It is so blatant. It's just disrespectful. And after the Skull and Bones debacle of the quadruple A title, problems that we've seen with Ubisoft earlier in this year, but then also this in the later half of this year, it's been really devastating on Ubisoft, and they have just really gone down the drain. They're doubling down now as well, calling people racist, calling people bigots, calling people all sorts of awful things because they don't like the games, saying that the vision was met and that the games are great and that people are just loud and hating on it. And that is just genuinely not the case. The games are bad, the pricing is bad, and the stock prices are now reflecting it. If you guys didn't know, Ubisoft is a French company. They operate out of Montreal, and specifically, they have been given a massive letter from a large majority of shareholders getting together, saying that there are three options that they can do. They can either sell the company and go private. They can look at turning things around and doing some form of set value trading, or they can fire the CEO and get a new CEO in, one that is an out of company hire, one that is going to be able to carry this company and this brand into the future. So it's not looking good. It's not looking good for Ubisoft. And one of the best parts about it is this threat is not empty handed. They can and will be able to force a sale on the game studio as a whole if it comes to it, because in France there is a law that allows minority shareholders to actually band together and force a sale of a company into going private or whatever they need to, which is something that they are looking at pursuing and are threatening to do. So this is a really big deal, because this could be the end of Ubisoft as we know it, and it could change, and it could get a complete overhaul. We really don't know. We really can only speculate, and I can almost guarantee you that Ubisoft is in a lot of trouble thanks to the fact that they have not only produced some terrible, massive stinkers over the last year, but also because their two last flagship games of the year that are incredibly important to them and are basically the reason that they have to still keep going as a company, looking to be massive flops, littered with controversy, littered with issue, and considering Outlaws has released and the stock price has actually gone down after the release of Outlaws, is not a good sign. So we'll see if Shadows can bring it back. Maybe Shadows is actually a masterpiece of a game, and no one's going to care about the historical inaccuracies once it comes out, but from the looks of things, it is not looking good. I hope you all enjoyed the video. I wanted to talk about Ubisoft. I wanted to talk about a little bit about just the disaster that's going on with them. Share my thoughts. Wanted to talk about it. I will probably follow up once we get the release of Shadows. Let's see how it goes. But for now, by golly, is there so much coming out about Ubisoft that is not good. They've even had a mentorship program sort of brought to light where they're discriminating against your typical white male gamers, as they call them, as well as a bunch of other social political nonsense that I'm not going to cover here because I don't care about that stuff. I think it's just ridiculous, and I don't think that it belongs in our video games. I think that we should look at good products that perform well, that are working, fully functioning, and at a reasonable price before we look at anything to do with diversity or social politics in that regard. I think we can all enjoy our various different video games in a way that allows us to have good video games first, and then all that other stuff second. Nevertheless, share your opinions below. Let me know, are you excited for any of these games? Did you play Star Wars Outlaws and get a refund? Have you pre-ordered Shadows? Are you even going to look at Shadows content? I would love to know how many people are actually excited for any of these games, or have played any of these games, or tried them. It's just crazy to me that such a great studio has gone down the shitter in such a strong way. Nevertheless, thank you all for watching. Please have a good day. Join the Discord. Join the Twitch community. We have such a fantastic community over there. I stream absolutely every single day. Come by, hang out, say hello. Much love to you all. And I will see you all very, very soon in the next video. Stay safe out there. It is a dangerous world.